Hello and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. Something a bit different. It's my next door neighbour Dan. He loves his Americana, and when he got this car in, I just thought, I've got to do a video on this because it's so off-beam and so fascinating to British people, and hopefully a few Americans too, because of its part in history, really. Welcome to the Oldsmobile Futuramic Rocket 88, 1950 style. So this is commonly fated amongst car cognoscenti, particularly in the US, as the first ever production muscle car. It came about because Rolls-Royce, Oldsmobile were coming up with a revolutionary V8, really, at the time, or evolutionary perhaps is a better way of putting it, that became the blueprint for V8s for many decades later. And it's a 5-litre V8, 303 cubic inch, but it has a forged crankshaft instead of a cast iron crank for added strength and durability. It has aluminium pistons, which weren't necessarily a given. This is 1950, remember, which is whatever it is, 74 years ago, by some 76 years ago. And it had hydraulic lifters, and it also had what's called a dual plane inlet manifold, which, because of the staggered firing order of a V8, which was still, as a production engine, far from dominating. You still had the straight 8s, the straight 6s. This model superseded a straight 6 engine, but the twin plane inlet manifold meant, because of the uneven firing order of a V8 engine, to keep it in good synchronization, you have one carburetor choke going to the outer cylinders on one bank and the inner cylinders on another, and then the other half of the carburetor going to the outer chokes on the other bank and the outer ports, and the inner ports on another head. So it's a staggered arrangement, the inlet manifold. This was a very early engine to have that, which stayed with GM and Ford, and right across Buick. Rover brought it in with the V8 in the UK, the original Buick engine. This was the blueprint. And the reason why it's considered the first muscle car is because Oldsmobile had that engine, which they'd been using in their full-size cars, wait for it, and then they copied and pasted that engine into this, which was their mid-size car. And the result was you had a big lump, big torquey, powerful engine for its day, allied with a mid-size, lighter body. And this is where the muscle car USP was stamped into place. Big engine, relatively light body by US car standards. Brakes equivalent to throwing an anchor out of the window. All that good stuff. But hey, cornering ability had to be applied for in triplicate before you could do it. It's also inspired the first ever, again, this is, there's some internet stuff around this, the first ever rock and roll song. R&B music was around at the time in the form that it was then, and then Ike Turner, Tina Turner's ex-husband, and somebody else whose name I can't remember, coined the song Rocket 88, and it was all around this car. Again, Oldsmobile their star was very much on the ascendant at this time. They were heavily involved in winning the NASCAR racing, but I just love it, actually. It's different. I've never seen one before. I didn't realize until I looked into it the historical significance of this model. As I say, that the first ever production muscle car, that is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to delve into it a little bit. We will inevitably end up taking this for a run. And I have some interesting news regarding my test route as well. There's been a change for the better. So I present the Oldsmobile Futuramic 88 Rocket 88. I mean, the reason it was called Rocket is because of we'd moved on from the jet age, or we were still in it in the 1950s, the Boeing 707, the de Havilland Comet, the Caravel aircraft. All these were precursors of very successful, well, the Comet eventually, but that's another story, of the jetliner, where you could leave London and have lunch in Cairo and then fly back again in the evening. Wonderful. That was the start of all that. But Oldsmobile was shooting for the stars, so they called it the Rocket 88 because America was beginning to compete with Russia in the space race. So why not? It had the power and the credentials to back it up. The engine in this form, with its original fairly crude carburettor, produced 135 brake horsepower, which is laughable really today. But this was 1950. Dial in that era. It works out at around about 25 brake horsepower a litre, which, you know, doesn't sound a lot, but actually it propels this thing quite well. Obviously, being America, they could bore them out, they could stroke them, they could put bigger valves in, more efficient exhaust systems. These were highly tunable engines as well. I'm going to tune the engine on this. There's one or two, there's probably a lazy hydraulic lifter, I think, in the engine. So there's a bit of a tapping noise, but I'll just set up the carburettor on it and then we'll take it for a run. Well, one thing I have to share is this wonderful piece of kit. So we've got an internally adjustable door mirror, which is very revolutionary for the 1950s. But look, we have a spotlight attached. Just the thing for if you're out on the prairies, lining up your next steak dinner. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, and internally, I mean, this thing feels like a pistol grip. This thing, absolutely wonderful. I've never seen anything like that. The interior, of course, is very 1950s Americana. This sort of velour material, and it's not in the first flush of youth. We understand that, but. I just find it very, very interesting. The radio, it's actually got a radio, which is a valve radio, of course, from that period. It doesn't work, but normally you would turn it on, wait for the valves, the vacuum tubes to warm up in the radio, and then you start to get sound. Brilliant. Okay, let's tune the carburetor. Well, this is the heart of the machine, a comparatively big for 1950. Oldsmobile sort of engine that set the blueprint for V8 engines to come. The only real competitor in terms of American engine technology in large production numbers was the Cadillac V8, which was not dissimilar to this. Mechanical fuel pump, dynamo, obviously, HT leads quite near the exhaust manifolds. That was the only way they could really work with what I'm pretty sure are what are called wedge-shaped combustion chambers, which were used by Rolls-Royce and Bentley, for example, who modelled their V8 on an American basic design, not dissimilar to this, right through to the late 90s, early noughties. So yeah. The original carburettor, because they're very fragile. They're made of Mazak or Zamak, which are zinc aluminium alloys originally, and they have a life, carburettors on these engines. So they just start to crumble, the Zamak or Mazak. So it's had an Edelbrock manifold put on it, and that has got to be a good thing. And this is one of the miracles of American utility design. I mean, there are one or two interesting noises coming from this engine, but generally it sounds acceptable. But the way this car is running, this is just a plug and play Edelbrock carburettor, which the Americans do so well, Holly, and it literally, you bolt it onto the engine. You don't need to worry about, finite jetting like you do with Weber carburetors or whatever. You've got two idle mixture screws here, and that is it. The engine's warm, so I'm going to wind them in, which weakens the mixture. There we go. And just wind it out till it comes back. And again, that's just beginning to slow down, so I'm over-richening it. And with classic cars and the California smog regs, what you quite often have to do is screw these in so they're weak, so that the mixture and the hydrocarbons goes down, like that, but they don't run very happily. And there we are. I'm going to do the same with the other one. There we go, drastic change. And that's it. Easy peasy. Well, of course it's got steering that would make a riverboat feel taut. You know, we have to take everything in context. But it's I'm still really enjoying myself. As I often say, you know, I've driven cars worth and worked on and restored cars worth tens of millions of pounds. I can derive just as much pleasure from driving and working on something considerably cheaper, worth a tiny fraction of those prices, because classic cars are a great leveler. They really are. One can either be snooty about these things, or one can just enjoy. I'm simplifying things drastically. Obviously, I don't want to be iconoclastic, to use a big word, and say, you know, expensive classic cars are not highly covetable and collectible, but, you know, trundling along the road here, I'm in a happy place. That V8 burbles beautifully inside the cabin. It really does. You can just hardly hear it, but what you can hear is quality, not quantity. But the other thing is, the ride is amazing. Now, talking of ride, this is my familiar test route that I've used because it's near the garage and it's handy. But the council have very kindly resurfaced the road, and it is currently absolutely beautiful. It is silk smooth. The transformation is like chalk and cheese. So thank you, Flintshire County Council, or whoever did it, for doing that. It is just great. Oh my goodness. I think we're running out of petrol. How many gallons has it used in the half mile since I left the garage, I wonder? This is awkward. Just a minor technical glitch. Put another 15 gallons of fuel in it, it'll be fine. No power steering. No wonder it's 150 turns lock to lock. Okay. Try again. Yes, I'm definitely becoming an Americana devotee. I actually quite like that this car isn't in pristine condition. I like the patina. But the ride, as I was saying before I thought we'd run out of petrol, the ride is great. It's very smooth, it just wafts along. For at least the people in the front, I imagine it's the sort of car somebody could get car sick in too, but it's all about, what is it about with this car? The acceleration, being the first acknowledged muscle car in the US with that recipe. Let's just knock it down to first gear on the automatic transmission and see what we have. Whoa! That was amazing. We'll just do that again. That was really quite impressive. That feels like far more than 135 horsepower to me. Okay, here we go. That was actually incredible for a 1950 car, a 76-year-old car, to accelerate like that was just unbelievable. Well, I'm guessing the fuel consumption on this thing is pretty heavy because we've actually run out of fuel. So I'm waiting for the cavalry to arrive. And also, just to compound matters, the engine isn't cranking over fast enough. Welcome to the joys of classic cars. So anyway, James, aka the cavalry, is on the way with some fuel. So what can possibly go wrong?
Battery
in the front.
If they can't find space for it under there is a problem.
I know, yeah.
Really.
You could put a power station under there.
Yeah. A nuclear one.
Get this on film, Mikey. Never ever have I ever seen him do anything other than stand there with the funnel. You'll never see him with a jerry can in his hand.
They go better with petrol.
Yeah, they do.
It's all right opening the taps, but if there's no fuel in the taps, it doesn't work tremendously well. This is more like it. Whoa! Okay. This is good. Wow. For 1950, this is moving. This is so fast, this car. Incredible that so big and so unwieldy, if you like, can be so fast. This is great. I love it. Absolutely fantastic. Not too good on the bumps. Well, I know this is a bit of a diversion. Please do remember to subscribe. It is very important. And we'll be back with something else, probably more mainstream soon.